Hi, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. Just let me know in case there is any background noise or anything. Okay. So, um, so welcome to week 7 contents that we're going to discuss today. Week 7, I don't know how many of you have already seen the videos. Can you just give me some estimate? Like, can you raise your hands if you've seen the video so that I have some idea about it? Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Okay, you can lower your hands. Thank you. Yeah, so in general, I see that about 3 out of, say, 13 people, right, including the person. So many of you have seen the video. So I'll just start off with the assumption that, you have not seen the video. I mean, at least most of you have not seen it. So let us just start with some very basic ideas. So this week 7 is generally about, I would say, handling issues or the exceptions, or what do you say, the mistakes or the errors that happen during programming, right? So whenever you start to do some programming, whenever you start to write a code in a programming language, naturally our expectation is that everything will be fine in the first run, first writing itself, right? But it hardly happens like that. So I mean, when you all of you started coding in Java for the first time, definitely there have been many cases where you really wanted to take help from others, and take help even from whatever is the system provided tools and all that. So in a way, yeah, so I would suggest, like, please do not edit it. So maybe I should, yeah, sorry, Puneet, got it. Yeah, maybe I should disable the editing provision because everybody is trying it out, I guess. Just give me a minute. I suppose I have made everyone viewers only. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so the idea is like, whenever we write this program, there are so many types of errors that can come up. So in general, there can be compiler errors, there can be runtime errors, there can be logical issues, there can be so many kind of issues, right? So Java being this strictly object-oriented language, right? Even these things, like these errors, are also treated as kind of objects. So when you say these are treated as objects, then definitely there is some class, some template for these class objects, right? Which is the class. So within the Java hierarchy, the class which is on the topmost, from which all these errors or exceptions that we are going to look at are coming from what is known as the throwable class. Okay, so when you say this ABLE, right, comparable, iterable, or so many things, no? Generally these are interfaces, but just note that throwable is a class and not an interface. So throwable is on the highest of these hierarchy. So how do I show this? Like, okay, you have, say, throwable, which is here in the hierarchy, and then you have two main kind of errors that Java allows you to, I mean, that are encountered during programming in Java. One is errors and the other is exceptions. Okay. So this terminology is something not really related to what is exactly happening, or at least I don't know like how these terminologies were coined. I mean, have been coined. But these two are like two different types of errors that happen in any program. So errors are something that the programmer does not have to, programmer is not expected to handle, in the sense that something which is specific to the system in which it is being run, or more like something like the environment related errors, right? Something like, let me put it something like, yeah, stack overflow error is one good example. Like stack overflow error is this, when the main memory, like you have a recursion call where you're not initialized it, or in a certain cases where this goes beyond. So that is something related to, of course, the programmers, but there are certain other cases where in the internal memory management has to take care of the stack overflow error, and then out of memory error, and then there are few other errors which are supposed to be handled by the system and not expected to be handled by the programmer. So these are in general we refer to as the errors. We also see what is known as assertion error, right? Because assertion is something that we are looking at this week. And exceptions are things which, when the programmer is writing the code, they kind of anticipate, okay, I'm going to have certain issues with this line of code. Then let me see if such an issue comes, let me see how to handle it. Some kind of anticipating, like when I'm a programmer and I'm writing a code, I'm anticipating that there is something that is going to happen which could lead to this program crashing, or rather it generating some kind of an issue which cannot be handled by the runtime environment, or which there is a certain decision, or there is something that has to come from the programmer side. So the programmer can anticipate these kind of issues, and then they have to do what is known as handling these situations, right? So we call these such type of issues as exceptions. So when you say exception, there is some set of code that you think there will be a problem, and you put it inside what is known as a try block. Okay, so there is this try block. Okay. And then you know that, okay, these are the lines that are likely to cause a problem for me. And then what I do is, if I have to handle these things, then I have to write some code inside this catch block, okay, which will handle the issue that has been happened. So it may not be like it is solving the issue, but at least it will report to the user in a user-friendly way that, okay, this is the problem that was encountered. Probably there is some problem with the input that you gave. Probably there is some problem with the file that you gave, or some kind of, user readable, user understandable input. So whatever happens in try inside the try block, that is like it is throwing an exception. That part, that lines of code is actually throwing some exception, and that is why we have a catch block here, which in turn catches that exception and handles it in a way which is more graceful rather than an abrupt exit of the program. It's a more like a very graceful way of handling it. And in most of the cases, what happens is, once this is caught, this exception is caught inside the catch block, the program will still continue to execute. Unless there is, of course, a certain dependency on this, whatever has happened here, which will have to happen, which will have to be, those are like exceptional situations. But in general, if this is an exception faced here and this catch block is able to catch that problem, then the Java code will continue to execute after the exception is handled. So this is the general structure of handling the exceptions. Now, the exceptions itself, we say that this is of two types, okay, in general. So this is checked exceptions. These are unchecked exceptions. Okay. So checked exceptions are generally those exceptions which are insisted by the compiler. See, compiler itself tells you, okay, see, I see this line of code and I'm anticipating that there's going to be a problem there. So programmer, as a programmer, you are supposed to put it inside a try catch block. The problem may happen, may not happen, but I can clearly see that there could be a problem. Okay. So compiler itself insists that that is an exception. There is a class of exceptions which are the unchecked exceptions, which are kind of not compulsory. The compiler probably does not, compiler does not insist that the programmer should catch those exceptions. It could lead to an exception, of course, and it could lead to a program, ending abruptly and all that, but it does not insist it. Show an example of a checked and unchecked exception, how a simple change, becomes an unchecked one and the other becomes an unchecked exception. So how do you identify what are checked and unchecked exceptions, right? So in general, it is not possible to by heart or even know what kind of exceptions are coming inside or anything, but just to give you a general idea, unchecked exceptions are those which are the runtime exception. I'll tell you what runtime exceptions are. Give me a second. Runtime exception and its subclasses. This is the unchecked exception. Okay. So what is runtime exception? So you have a throwable class here. There is an exception. So in the hierarchy, it will be throwable. Then you have exception. Of course, the error is also there in a parallel this thing, but I'm just telling. Okay. Then you have the runtime exception. And whatever comes below this, right? This and whatever comes below this are unchecked exceptions. As the name itself indicates, these are things which are expected at the runtime. So the compiler does not insist on these unchecked exceptions. So these are like, okay, I mean, so if you ask me like, how does the compiler is again telling you that some exception is going to happen during runtime. So why does it distinguish? But this is the way, like, if you look at the exceptions which are inside the unchecked, you will sometimes get an idea, right, as to why these are being, say, for instance, inside the unchecked is where you see this arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception is like one of the prominent examples of this arithmetic exception is the division by zero. And whether, say, if you put something like k equal to I by j, right? If you put something like, okay, I equal to j by k or something like that, and you never know whether k is ever going to get the value zero, you can know it only during the runtime. So generally, the compiler does not insist that you have to catch this exception during. You have to catch this exception. The compiler does not insist. Okay. Now, what are checked exceptions? So you have this exception, and from this you have the runtime exception, right? So every other subclass of exception which are not coming under this, right? So exception and its subclasses minus unchecked exceptions. Those are the set of checked exceptions. So everything that, see, if the user wants to define a new exception, right? Then user will say, so again, I tell you, throwable is the highest on the hierarchy, exception is the next highest. So if the user wants to declare an exception on their own, they have to extend it, say the exception, they're extending, say, exception. Then it is naturally a subclass of exception, right? So generally, the user-defined exceptions are checked exceptions because you directly inherit from this case. Okay, so these are the two different types of exceptions. One is a checked exception, the other is an unchecked exception. So this is about the basic idea about checked exceptions. Now, just give me a second. Now I'll just share the screen and show you a simple example of a checked exception and unchecked exception. Okay. Let me just stop sharing this whiteboard. So any idea how to close this whiteboard? I'm sorry, I have not used it. Anybody knows?
And try the whiteboard button again.
Sorry?
Try the whiteboard again.
Yeah, I wanted to close this whiteboard. Anybody knows how to do that? Okay, okay. Here you have closed whiteboard. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, got it. Thanks. Okay, so I'll give you a small example of how to distinguish between a checked exception and an unchecked exception. Okay, so let us start off with class test exception instance arithmetic exception. I have told you it's an unchecked exception, right? me just write a method. I will tell you what this sorry, okay, I'm not audible. Okay, I'll tell you what this throws means and all that. Okay, I'll come to that. Before that, I just wanted to give you an idea about what checked and unchecked exception, what the difference that you would generally see when. Okay, so just give me a second. Now, as you can see, this except test, right? It is actually throwing this test exception, which is an arithmetic exception. Okay, so arithmetic exception is a runtime exception. So as I told you, it is an unchecked exception, and hence the compiler does not insist that you should put this calling method inside a try catch block. Otherwise, the compiler would create problem. I can tell you, show you why. Okay, so suppose instead of arithmetic exception, you simply give it as an exception. Okay, let us see how it works. So test throws this exception. It's not causing any, it's not creating any compilation error or something. Yeah. See now, can you see this error message here on the right side?
Yes,
I just changed this arithmetic exception to exception, right? I did not change anything else in the code. When I just gave arithmetic expression, this code was compiling properly. Whereas when I extended it from exception, then it becomes a checked exception. Earlier, when I extended it from arithmetic, because arithmetic exception is a runtime exception, which in turn, as I told you, runtime exception and its subclasses are unchecked exceptions, and hence the compiler does not cause a problem, even if you do not put them in the try catch block. Whereas if you are extending directly from the exception class, this exception, your test exception, is a checked exception now. That means the compiler will insist that you have to put it inside the try catch block. Okay, so if I put it here, say try if I try to compile it, it should not create any problem because I have already put it inside a try catch block. So this is the basic difference between a checked exception and an unchecked exception. See, it does not create any compilation error. Has everyone understood the basic idea? This throws and all that, you can ignore it for now. Just understand that test exception is a checked exception when it is inheriting directly from the exception class, which is on top of the hierarchy just after the throwable class. And when it is extending arithmetic exception, it is a arithmetic exception is a subclass of runtime exception, which in turn is an unchecked exception. And hence the compiler does not insist that you should put it inside a try catch block. Is this clear? Not clear?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Does anyone have any questions?
But what are the this means like exception? It's need the try catch block like that. What are the others? It's required. How do I know?
What are the others meaning?
Means say arithmetic exception is a runtime.
Correct.
Means unchecked. But what are the things which comes under unchecked and what are the things comes under checked?
That you can just go through the, I'll just show you the Java documentation. That will probably make, just give me a second. So that's what I was telling you, like it is not possible to by heart all these things, whichever are Java, the runtime exceptions in other ways. Let me just share. Can you see this Java documentation which I have?
Yes.
See, this exception class has so many subclasses. These are the direct subclasses. Okay. Now inside this, you can see somewhere here P, Q, R. See here you can see the runtime exception. If I click on this runtime exception again, I can see this is the hierarchy. You have object on top, throwable next, then you have exception, then you have runtime exception, inside which these are all runtime exceptions. So it's not possible for you to by heart anything. But with experience, when you do a lot of problems, you will understand like, okay, this is what. See, as I told you, arithmetic exception is one runtime exception. So we are not expecting like anybody should by heart it. I mean, nobody should expect that also. So that's not what I'm trying to say is like distinguishing between these two types of exception. That's it. So these are all this is all the list of runtime exceptions. Got it, no? And whatever are there in exception class, other than what comes under runtime exception, are all checked exceptions.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Got it, no? Yeah. Okay. So I'll go back to the. Just give me a second. So is replit visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now this is the difference between checked and unchecked. So just to explain the hierarchy which I was doing earlier, right? Just to show you that I have just given this example. Now let us see the structure, like how we are doing this. So there are like many standard exceptions, like whatever are given by the Java. Like I have just shown you like whatever are there inside the exception class, and further down, like the hierarchy, like it can go further. Very very specialized exceptions can be there, right? So we can have two types of exceptions in that sense. One is user defined exceptions, and the other is built-in exceptions which are provided by Java. The built-in exceptions which are provided by Java have specific purposes. Say, for instance, if I put something like This is the typical example that everyone will show you to show the example of arithmetic exception. Okay, now what happens if you do this, right? When you do this, just 1 second, give me a second. What happens is like you have 3 variables and you are actually, sorry, this is not 2, this is 3. Okay. You are dividing by 0. So this should actually, in general, cause a program crash because division by 0 is not defined and no compiler or runtime environment will be able to handle this kind of mathematical situation, right? So what happens when we try to execute this is like, let me just compile this. So you get this message division by 0. And suppose you had some other statement after this. Okay. Suppose you had some other statement after this, which is like this will also get executed because your program is not going for an abrupt crash, rather than it is going for a graceful exit by handling an exception which the programmer was expecting, right? So these two are this is the whole idea of using exceptions, right? When you have a certain kind of a situation which you are expecting and you don't want the full program to stop running. Now see, even though there was an issue, right, which the runtime environment could not handle, which is like the division by 0 situation. So it said, okay, I have encountered something, but you have told me how to go about it. So I'm displaying something, and then I'm going to proceed with whatever is required after this. Suppose we had not given this try block. Now what happens? Let us see. Okay, let me just, sorry, I just wanted to copy the system. See, now it did not print the success message because it encountered a step which it did not know how to handle, and then it ended abruptly. The program ends due to unhandled exceptions. So this exception could not be handled by the runtime environment, and it exited without printing the test success message. Right. In the other case, we put it inside the catch, and it was a graceful exit. So this is the main idea of using exceptions. You want to have some way in which you handle these exceptions gracefully, and your program is able to continue. Of course, if there was some dependency on the value of I and all that after this, then there is a problem. Even if you had catch, then it probably will not work properly. But in other cases, like when there is no dependency on that particular value which generated this exception, it will still continue to execute and give you an output. Okay, so that is the main purpose of having the exception. Now let us see what happens if you have multiple kinds of exceptions, right? Say for instance, yeah, I'll take. Now I have one which is right for Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some issue here. Okay, okay, let me write the catch block also. I'll tell you what the problem is. Okay. Now, as you can see, I have declared an array of size say 3. Okay, I hope you can see it here, size 3. So the permitted indexes for the array, the permitted array indices are 0, 1, and 2. Like if you want to access the third one, then it causes a problem, right? Now what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to write to the third index also. So I'm going to write to the value where the array is not like the memory has been allocated only for 3 locations for this array in array, and it is trying to write to a location which is not allocated for this array. Okay. Now it should show me, it should tell me that, okay, if I don't put this catch block, it will tell me, okay, there is this string, array index out of bounds. Okay. So I'm going to have an exception that this is array index. I don't remember the exception. Okay. Now what happens if I run this, right? So I'm getting like division by 0. I'm getting, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
You're able to see the one at the bottommost part also, right? Whatever are the messages that. Okay. So
Yes, ma'am.
you have a division by 0, which is coming from this first try loop, try catch block. Then you have another array index out of bounds exception, which is coming from inside this. And then you have the success message. So do you really need these two separate try catch block is the question. Suppose I want to do this whole thing inside one try. Can I catch all these exceptions? Okay, I put it inside this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this try. I have another catch. That's it, simple. I've modified it from that to this. Okay. Now, if I run, what happens? Can anybody tell me what happens? Can anyone tell me what will be printed, whether it will print it all or whether this is not permitted? Can anyone tell me what happens?
First, it will print divide by 0.
Okay.
Then array like array items, or I'm not sure with that. Whether it will continue with the same try back or after the catch, I think.
Ma'am,
You
it
go to
will only
success.
print division by 0.
Sorry?
It will only print the error division by 0.
Okay. So why
Then
do you
success also.
yeah, success also. So why do you think it will print only division by 0?
Because in a try block, if we encounter an exception, rest of the block will not get executed. It will straight away go to the error.
Right. So in this line at line 11, it is actually encountering an exception, which is taken care of by this block. That's correct. And I told you that the program will continue execution, but that is not within this try block. What continues with the exception is, execution is after this whole try catch block, whatever is there, it will continue execution from there. That is the idea. It's not like you encountered an exception. Okay, I encountered an exception at line 11 and this has been caught here. So let me just continue execution from line 12. No, the whole try catch block is treated as a single entity. And whenever there is an exception that is raised inside that try catch block, right, it does not go to the next line and within that try block. Rather, it goes out of all the catch or finally or whatever are there as part of the full try catch block and resumes execution from there.
Ma'am, one question.
Yeah.
The try block in starts at 10, line 10 and ends at line 16.
Mm-hmm.
And the catch block starts at 17 and ends at 19. Now,
One catch block.
one catch. I'm just saying one.
Yeah.
Now, after line 16, if I write my balance part of program, and then after that I will write the catch. In this case, if the try block have an exception error, will the in between try and catch, whatever I have written will execute?
So what you mean to say is I have to copy this from here and put it here, right? Something like this, right?
I think it will give a catch block without a try exception. It will give.
Yeah, but is this what you meant, Samit? This is what you meant?
Yes.
Right.
Now
I have put it something like this. No, this is what you meant, right? Is it correct? Is my
yes.
understanding correct? Okay. At this it does not. It will not allow. I'll just show you. So somebody was explaining what was that?
I was saying that it will show that there is a catch block without a try block.
Yeah, so it is not a runtime error. I think what you mentioned was a runtime error, right? It's not a runtime error, it's a compiler error.
That means try and catch has to be just side by side.
Yeah, so you can have something without catch also, but it should have at least a finally. Either is, I'll show you what a finally is. Okay, I'll come to that. Just give me a second. Anand, please correct me if I'm wrong, okay? If I'm messing up somewhere, please let me know. Okay. Now I can have a finally block here where I can print the system. Okay. This I can print and sorry, the replit is taking a long time, but with Eclipse, I think it will be, it is difficult to show the Java C and Java output separately. You have to show it in the command. Yeah. See, now what happens is it has caught this error. I mean, it was caught in this arithmetic exception. And finally it came here, right? Whatever is there in finally will get executed irrespective of which catch block got executed. Okay. Even if there was a problem, there was no problem in try at all, even then whatever is there in finally will get executed. There could have been a problem in try and it came to this catch and then again finally is executed. Suppose there was a problem in try, then it came to catch and there was a problem inside the catch also. There was another exception that was raised. Even then this finally will execute. So finally is more like this cleaning up processes, right? So you opened something like a file or you open something like a scanner, scanner object or anything. If you want to close those things, if you don't want any memory leakage or this cleaning up kind of task, you can do it in finally. There are exceptions for this also. Yeah, sorry.
Without writing finally, we also have this success now.
No, that I actually moved this from the outside. No? This was here below earlier on line 26. It was here earlier. I moved it inside the finally.
Okay.
So what you're asking is like whatever comes after this will also get executed is what you're saying, is it?
Yes, after catch block, if I write something that will get executed, right?
That will get executed, but whatever you have done for try, right? If you want to say, suppose there is this sc.close, whatever the system scanner, whatever you've done inside try, whatever you want to clean up. It's something like more like a logically related thing, right? Whatever you have done in the try and you want to do a cleanup or suppose you got something like a 0 here and you want to say, okay, that is an exception, that is everything, but eventually I want to change it to something else, even if it is 0 or 1 or whatever exception, whatever was not there, I want to change the variable name to something like that. That is something that you can, of course, what you said is right. Even after catch, you can write that. But this is more like a logical association of this full block. Try, catch, and then finally.
Okay.
Okay, so the other thing which I wanted to show you was, so even if you do not have this one, right? Now I'll just put it as 2 just to show that without. Okay, array out of bounds is coming there, but still you can see the success being printed. No? So this is because this is actually generating an exception that was not handled. I changed the denominator to 2, so that's why it did not generate the arithmetic exception, but I did not change the index of this. So that's still creating the array index out of bound, but it is still printing the success. So with finally it's still printing the success message. Okay. So try should necessarily be followed either by a catch or a finally. And finally will come after the catch block. Okay, after all the catch block. Now suppose I had something like this. Okay, this is here. So these are all things which you can just play around, right? And you can just try giving these exceptions, multiple exceptions inside. I'm just showing 1 or 2 examples just to show that, these are things that are happening in the, that's it. So which are, I mean, it's not like any conceptual thing or anything. It's more of how Java handles these things. That's it. So here, even though arithmetic exception is written first, the catch is for arithmetic exception. What is being executed is the first one, right? So here, this exception is caught by the second catch block, and that is what it is printing. It is showing the array out of bounds. Earlier, when we had this I equal to j by k, right? I equal to j by k in line 11, we got a division by 0 because this was the one which was getting executed first. And the same way, even if you interchange the arithmetic exception and array index out of bounds exception, whichever is getting executed first inside the try block, that exception will be displayed. Okay, so that is very simple idea. Now another simple thing that we can have here is exception. So exception is the parent class of all the exception classes, right? So just have in. Now what happens, what I'm trying to do here is, see, arithmetic exception is a subclass of exception, right? So when we are writing catch, in the case of arithmetic exception and array index point of exception, in a way, you cannot say that one is a subclass of other, right? Because the array index of bounds is actually coming from the index out of bounds, which is again coming from the runtime exception. Whereas arithmetic exception is coming directly from the runtime. So arithmetic exception and array index out of bounds exception, you cannot relate it with the subclass superclass relationship, right? So in that case, whatever comes first will be. But if you see in this case, right here, exception is a superclass of arithmetic exception. So when you are writing multiple catch blocks and you are not sure exactly, so if it I what I want to okay, let me tell you, let me put it this way. Any exception you want to handle, you would just have to put a try, and then you simply put instead of this arithmetic exception, you put an exception E, and it will be handled. There is no problem. So why are we having these specific exceptions, right? So in the case of specific exceptions, there may be certain specific actions that we want to take. If inside the try, there might be a big block of code. Based on each of these specific exceptions, we may want to take a certain step. If you just bundle everything inside this big exception class, you may not be able to exactly distinguish between each of these exceptions, or maybe able to give the customized message. Of course, you can use the e.print message, stack trace and all that, but these specific exceptions help you to customize a message that you want to give based on the error message that is generated. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of this exception? Writing it this way then. So there is one, okay, I can say it is a rule. If you want to write multiple catch blocks where one is a subclass of the other, then you have to write the more specific class or the subclass as the inside the first catch, and the superclass has to come next. Otherwise, what happens is, I will show you. See, if you put like this, what happens? Every exception will be caught inside this, right? So there is no way any code will go here at all in this arithmetic. Like there is no way that any code needs to go to line number 20 at all, right? If there is an exception, it will definitely be caught in line 17. And I mean, between line 17 and 19. So there is no line of execution which will need you to take the control of execution to line 20 at all. And what happens is this line 20 to 22 become unreachable code. It becomes unreachable. Sorry. Yeah.
If I give catch exception and then I give a catch arithmetic exception, won't the compiler give an error saying it's already caught?
So no, I didn't understand. What is it?
If you run this code, wouldn't
Ah.
line 20 give an error?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm executing. See, I have, okay. So you are saying the case which is shown now only, right? I thought
Yes.
you were asking about the previous case. You are asking about the case where first there is exception and second there is arithmetic exception, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see. Can you see the screen like at the bottommost? It actually generates a. See, it says exception, arithmetic exception has already been caught. See that, no, that will be caught in line 17. Whatever exception is there, it will be caught in line 17, right? So this line, this set of lines is actually some kind of an unreachable code. So Java does not allow that and you will not be able to. So whenever you are writing, you should know the hierarchy. Yeah, hierarchy and put the subclasses. And there could be a number of things like you just saw the index out of bounds. So if you want to do that, you have to put first array index out of bounds, then you have to put index out of bounds, then the runtime exception, and then the exception, right? So that should be the sequence in which it has to be added. So that is the hierarchy of exceptions. Okay. Now, how do you have customized exceptions, right? So so far what we have seen is all what the Java packages, Java Assertions gives you, right? The runtime exception, the arithmetic exception, index out of bounds, and whatever you have seen is all what is Java giving you. Suppose you want to give your customized exception, say something like, so I think this is there in one of the programming questions also. So something like division by some number is not permitted, say division by 7 is not permitted. Then you want to say extend this. Now, I'm not going to implement the full thing, but what you can do is you can have your own.
Super should be inside the constructor, right?
Yeah, this should be the inside the constructor. Sorry. I was just getting the skeleton ready. Sorry. me see, I don't remember exactly if this is the way. Let me just see. Division by 7 rows. Generally, you give it as an exception. Okay. Generally, you would have seen the names of these exception classes. No? They are pretty big all the time. So it's more for readability. Now, you have defined an exception class by yourself, right? So this I showed the first example also. This is an exception class that you have defined. Now, you have to give a certain case where this exception will be thrown. Okay. So suppose you have say in I equal to 0 and int j comma k, j equal to 0, int k equal to 7. So before this, if you will check, okay, so maybe I will not just show it here. So what you will do is you will check before this division, you will check if k equal to 7. Okay, if k equal to 7, then you should not permit the division by 7, right? So if k equal to this thing, then throw new. Just going to see. Just give me a second. So, see, I'm writing this code on the go so that it's. I have actually written all the duplicates of this elsewhere, but I'm just writing it on the go so that it becomes easy for you. But if you think it's time consuming, then probably next time I'll come up with all these ready-made codes. But sometimes it's difficult when you have so many lines of code, especially with so much of Java syntax. It's especially difficult to go through line by line and try to understand somebody else's code. But we code as we go. I thought it will be much easier for you to understand. So if you think this is not useful, just let me know.
No, it is
It's
fine.
better, ma'am. It's better to understand.
So if it's time consuming, then there's a problem, but otherwise I guess we can. So I'm going to say this. This is equal to this, else return. Let me see if this works.
No, I think there will be a semicolon after a throw new division by 7 exception.
This is correct. Yeah. Sorry. Right. Okay, let me see if this compiles.
Yeah, ma'am, please keep line number 9 in try block. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that's
I-
what. So this is
yeah.
one example where this is a checked exception, right? So as you can see this message, when I'm keeping it on top of this, you can see it's an unhandled exception type division by 7 exception. Okay. So if I say this is an arithmetic exception, right? So Anand, then this problem will not be there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But then it is not, okay, so I have to print the message. Okay, I'll just show you. Exception. Now it's actually showing this division by, see, earlier it was showing some Java exceptions, right? Now it is showing this our exception. It's actually showing this exception. Now, how can you handle it? You actually put it inside a try catch block and say that you have to catch the, I'll show you. Just one second. Try. So you can see this, no? Now, can people understand or do you have a doubt? It's kind of self-explanatory, but I'll still explain to you, okay? So you have first declared a customized custom exception. This is something you want to do when you are trying to attempt a division by 7, just like we have a division by 0, okay? Now you can actually extend it from, because you have put it in the try catch block, you can actually extend it from exception also. There is no problem. And what I'm doing is I'm actually inside the constructor. I'm saying, okay, this is the custom message I want for this exception. Okay, this is the custom message which I want for this exception when a constructor is created. Now inside this, not a constructor, an object is created, a constructor is invoked. Sorry. Yeah. Now inside this, I'm actually going to attempt a division by 7. When it comes to a division by 7 method, this actually checks whether this value is equal to 7 and it throws a new division by 7 exception. Now at this point, what happens is the message has been sent. Now the one key thing that you have to see is, why do you need this? This is needed because this is a new exception, and when you are throwing something from this method from inside this is there, no? It should show to the outside world that, okay, see, there is some statement inside my body, like inside this function body, which is throwing an exception. And the type of that exception of this form, that is, it is throwing this division by 7 exception. And whoever is going to invoke this method should be ready to receive this exception. That is what is meant by this throws division by exception. So when we are invoking this division by 7, we can of course give here, we can give exception. There is no problem. So the parent class exception, we can give it, there is no problem. But so what happens if you simply give exception? Yeah, you can give the parent class exception also, but this has been, why? Because this is just like this method argument coming. So this exception is coming and it is being called by a bigger class, let's say a parent class, which is capable of catching any specialized exceptions, right? So that's why this is able to receive that. Now, Okay, so this is the see, this is the what do you call that? Okay, whatever this like, even though this is a parent object, right? At runtime, it checks what is this message value. Runtime, this message is this DSC is an object of division by 7 exception, and hence it is printing this message. Division by 7 exception. Okay. So this is the way you create custom exceptions. I think I have almost solved one programming assignment question. I hope it's not a graded assignment. I don't know. Anyway, I've almost solved it. So this is something that it's pretty easy. You just have to get an idea of why a method throws an exception. And if in a situation which is custom, say for instance, in the lecture sir is citing an example where you are expecting a set of orders from a certain company or something, right? So these orders cannot be negative values, right? When you're placing an order, it should naturally be starting from either 0 onwards. So when these user is inputting these values, some point if you get a negative value, then you have to raise a custom exception. Say I got a negative input exception or something like that. So these custom exceptions are quite important when it comes to case by case handling of situations which are not which are specific to your applications, which are specific to your use case. Okay, so this is like a custom exception. So we have actually now looked at what are things, like we looked at the exception hierarchy, we looked at the difference between the checked and unchecked exceptions. We looked at the example of how to write customized exceptions. We also looked at the hierarchy of exceptions, how to write the, inside the catch, right? Like the order in which you have to write it. So this which we looked at. There is something called as chained exception, which I am not writing an example right now, but today I just wanted to go a little bit on the assertions and the logging part also. Chained exceptions, I will explain in detail. And right now I don't have a code also. So what it basically does is, I'll just give you a broad outline here. So suppose you have a class. Okay. And you have a method inside this, say public void A. And A is invoking, say, some method B. And inside which, okay, so it is invoking the method B, not declaring the method. And there is this method is here, public void. Okay. Now this is actually invoking the method C, which is actually declared here, public void C. Okay. Now suppose you want to send the exceptions, right? For instance, you want to, the exception has to be handled at this highest hierarchy, say price. Okay. But you want to know like from which level it has come, right? So you have something called as get cause and init cause. Okay. Init cause. I think this is the spelling. Init get cause. What you're saying is that, see, suppose you have, say, some method called as, say, arithmetic exception. Okay. And this arithmetic exception actually occurred because some user gave 0 as input. And the user should not have given that. You were expecting some positive integer values and the user gave a 0. And that is why that arithmetic exception came. But you also want to clearly specify that, see, arithmetic exception, of course, has to be handled. But it is also because internally the user gave that input. So inside the arithmetic exception, right? So inside the catch of arithmetic exception, so you have the arithmetic catch, right? Catch of arithmetic exception where the 0 is happening, right? You will do what is known as the init cause. That you will declare a new your custom method, say input 0 exception or something like that. Okay. Input 0 exception, say IE or something, which is equal to new input. So this will clearly cause a problem because I have not declared the classes. So here you will do something like this, and then you will say that, okay, for IE, I'm going to say this is the init cause. The cause is clear. Even though arithmetic exception has been raised, the problem in turn is not because of the it is not just because it's the division by 0, but because the origin of the problem is elsewhere. Like the input itself was given as 0, which should not have been given. So you want to raise a more customized message. So why I've shown this public void C, public void B, you actually propagate from the subclass to the immediate superclass, and then it goes back to the immediate superclass, etc. So here you will have the init cause. Okay. And then you get here the get cause. And then you propagate it further. Okay, so this thing I have not worked out an example, so I'm not very sure about like whether I'll be able to. I don't want to create a confusion. All I want to tell you this thing is like chained exceptions are useful when you know that okay, you have the standard exception, but you want to customize it based on certain other parameters, certain other input or certain other. Say suppose when you opened a file, right, instead of integers you observed that they are all strings, like, or instead of reading it as some kind of, and I'm not able to come up with some scenario, but you want to customize that and you propagate it back to the calling classes saying that okay, even though this was the exception which came from this, but I want to make it more clear that this is because of some input format was wrong, or some division by some other number which was not expected has happened, or it's some prime number instead of a composite number which has come, or something like that, right? Okay, so I'm not giving this, I'm sorry, but I did not work out an example for this. I'll try to do it in the next session. Okay. Okay, so this is about the chained exceptions. So does anyone have any doubt except in the chained exceptions? Like, because I have not explained it, I'll just give a brief idea, right? So just anyone has any other doubt on the exceptions? Otherwise, I'll just work something on very minimal on assertion. Yeah, Puneet.
Okay, ma'am, what is the minimum template required for exception handling? Well, I'll tell you the reason I ask.
Yeah.
I tried some problems from the lectures. I did not put any extends throwable after my class name. I did not put throws main in my method. It worked.
No, throws is all for custom exceptions only. No, not custom exceptions. You can have other also, but in general, throws is for custom exceptions. You are saying like throws this new exception, right?
Could you open your example of division by 7?
Yeah, just one
Point
second.
out those lines.
This
Right.
one, no?
Yes, ma'am. So here there are two things that I have not done. One is line number 1, extends exception I did not give.
No, that is because this is a custom exception. This is something you are creating, right?
Okay.
You want to create a specific. See here, what you're doing is you can actually give here division by exception, 7 exception, right? You're catching an exception which is custom made.
So we are
That is why for that has to extend this exception class. Sorry.
Okay, so if I create this custom exception, I can call it in anywhere in my package? Or it's only in this class?
No. Okay, so depends on the, see here, what is the access modifier for the class? No?
Okay, let's say they're public and it's within the
So
package.
this is actually default access. So within the package, yes.
Right.
And then you have to change the file name, I think, if it was a public package. That will remove all the other classes.
The file name is this custom except, right?
To make it a public class, I'm saying.
Public class is only for this one, no custom except.
Yes. I'm saying for making this a public class, that division by 7.
Then that you have to write it in a separate .java file.
Yes.
Yeah, we should write separately.
Yeah. So if you want to have an exception which you can use across your packages, all the packages, write it as a public exception, put it in a separate Java file.
Okay, but I'm still not clear about this custom error. Why do we need this?
You're still not sure is what you're saying?
Yeah, so if I don't put extends exception, I'm using the exception handler of Java, right? Inbuilt.
Okay, so let me tell you, let me tell you. So if k equal to 7, how do you plan to address it?
Okay, let's, can we try what I have done? If you just change 2 lines,
Oh,
Line one,
you're talking about the division
extends,
3 question, is it?
right, same question, whatever is on the screen. Line
Okay.
1, we will remove extends exception.
Okay, let me just write it in a new file. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Line 16, we remove throws division by 7 exception.
This one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Since we are calling division by 7 within the try block, I don't think we need. Okay, yeah. Could we try this?
Uh,
So I don't even have this one. I don't have throw. I have just, yeah, I just had the old one. I is equal to j divided by k. All of
so
them
you
0.
will simply print this message, right? Division by 7 not allowed. That's all, right?
Yeah, so what is the difference here? So what do I get by a custom? Because I can create a custom message in my catch. How does it help? Does anybody, I mean,
No. So what your question is, see, whatever I can accomplish without a custom exception, I can accomplish using this also. That's what you mean, right?
yes, I'm not seeing the difference. What is the
Why do
difference?
you even need a custom class is what you're asking, or something
Yes,
like this?
why, yeah, why
This
do
is
I
not
need
even
to
required.
extend? Why can't I just use a try and catch?
See, this is a very simple example which I'm showing you, which you can do it that way. See, suppose you want to have an exception which you want to use across 1,000 classes or something, right? Then it is better to have this, because then you can actually identify the moment the programmer sees this and okay, so this is something. See, for instance, there is some big automation of a company or something happening, and then you know that for a certain certain basic pay, certain thing is not allowed, or I'm not able to get a clear use case right now, but something like that, which is universal across all the departments and everything. And then you have this centralized system where you have a set of exceptions you have defined, right? And this particular case comes, and then you say that, okay, this has to throw this particular exception. That's it. So it's not just about, you can achieve a certain thing using many different ways. You don't need to declare this custom class. In fact, if you ask me, why do you even need to declare different function classes? You can in fact have most of these things written inside a simple class file and you can execute it, right? I mean, many of the classes that we have written, possibly you can actually put everything into a single .java file and execute it, right? I'm
Yes.
talking even within the same .java file, you don't need a different class. You can do that also, but then the whole purpose is not achieved, right? You want to reuse the object, you want to reuse the whole functionality, and you have the same custom message which is coming in. So if you are a programmer and there is another programmer, say I am going to automate the accounts department, and somebody else is going to automate the purchase department, and both of us are supposed to handle this division by 7. I'll write some custom message. I'll say division by 0 is 7 is not permitted. Somebody will say division by 7 is not an acceptable arithmetic operation or something like that. Whereas if you have a customized set of exceptions which you can use, which you can give, you can say, okay, this is the Java packages I'm giving. You can access it, use it so that, all of us give the same interface, same error message. So even with Windows, if do you want to save the thing before closing or something, that is, if it is asking different message for different applications, right, it will be difficult for you, right? So that's why we have these central things like, I mean, do you have a programming background? Like, do you
It's
do
very
extensive?
old. Yeah. Punch cards, COBOL, Fortran.
Oh, okay. So this reusability is something to plug and play kind of, right? This is like, I mean, something that we are using extensively these days. So we have these ready-made things, which is like, so whatever Java has given is something that is universal, things which exceptions which are required by everyone who is doing programming. But I'm going to automate my firm, which will have a certain set of specific requirements, which is specific for my firm only, right? So I will have a set of packages which I differ, and inside which these exceptions, customized exceptions, are also part of this whole thing.
Okay, so let me understand. So I can create a class of my exception, and all the other programmers can then extend that, use that class for standardized error
Yeah, so
messaging.
it's not just this message printing or anything, right? There could be an
Other
extra step
handling
of
also.
action that you have to
Right.
take using this and all that. So yeah, I mean, you can probably think about so many other extensions. So people who have experience using these customized exception packages, maybe they can give input on this. Or from within our own team, if anybody has any experience using these customized exception packages, please feel free to speak. But I don't have a clear
Not in
use.
Java. Let's say we have a database connect, and what happens is that if we cannot connect to the primary database, the error handler then tries the secondary database automatically. So yes, I can understand.
Correct, exactly, something like that. Yes.
Right.
So the second one, you can actually give the, I mean, the exception, you can actually give the connection credentials to a second database, right? Something like something like, yeah, I mean, you can think of so many use cases for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this helps in creating for those enterprise applications. This is much more helpful, having custom errors.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing that I can think of immediately. Maybe I'll just go back and do some more.
Fair enough. No, this satisfies. But I was thinking, when we can do something with minimal, why are we trying to add different things?
Yeah, I totally understand. So it's more of, see, plug and play kind of. This is what it immediately comes to my mind.
Thank you for the answer. I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, so that's it. Then, okay, let me just. So does anyone else have any question on exceptions? Okay, so shall I go on to assertion? Okay. Sorry. So what when we started off this discussion, what we said is that there is this throwable class which is on top of this hierarchy, and you have errors and exceptions as the two subclasses of this throwable class, right? So you want to, at certain point, you want to say that, okay, rather than finding if there is a mistake, or rather than finding there is a unexpected value coming in for a variable, I want to insist that, okay, if such a value is encountered, I don't want to execute the problem anymore. I don't want to, execute the program anymore. I want to assert that this is what I'm expecting and this is what has to happen. So assertions actually help us in doing that. So it is more of, I would say it is more of, how do you say, diagnostic tool, something to debug and detect error and all that, rather than, I would say, more, it is more less of a deployment specific requirement than of a than something that helps you to troubleshoot. Okay. So for instance, a simple example that sir has given, we'll just go back to that. Okay. Java assert. So this is the syntax. Okay, I'm going to say I want to ensure that the value of x is that of a positive integer. Okay. Now this is a syntax. I say assert followed by some predicate, right, which has a Boolean value. Yeah. So okay. So what I'm saying is, like, x must have a value which is strictly greater than 0. But the way I have initialized it, it is not going to, just give me a second. Yeah. So the way we have initialized it, x is equal to 0, and I'm going to insist that x has to have a value which is strictly greater than 0. Okay. Now let us see what happens if we compile this. Clear it. One second. Nothing happens really, right? I'm saying that I want to assert that x is greater than 0, but this is not, x is not greater than 0, but even when I compile, nothing has happened. Let me see what happens if I run this. even then nothing is happening. So what is the purpose of this statement, right? So the purpose of this statement, I want to add certain code at different parts of my program, such that if I want to see where there is a problem occurring, at that point, what I will do is I will just execute my Java using this shortcut, which is EA Java insert. See, now when I give this parameter minus EA, it is showing me an assertion error at line number 4. Can you see that? So what it means is that, okay, I can expand it also. I think this is the spelling. See, what it means that I have created, like I have added a number of assertion statements at various parts of my Java code. So as I told you in the beginning, this week is, except for the package part, this week is more about error handling and debugging and, getting the diagnostics of, so many things. So this week is generally about those things. So here again, if the programmer wants to add certain, so the programmer wants to see, okay, there are many points at which I'm suspecting that certain values could go beyond this. But in general, when I send to the customer side, right, when I send the code to the customer side, the customer should not have any problem. So when they run a simple Java, it will not cause any problem. Same time, the customer reports that, okay, there are these problems. And then I'll simply do this minus EA and I'll be able to troubleshoot, okay, at this point, the X has become giving an error. At this point, this Y is giving an error. Are you able to get the point? So this is more like debugging kind of thing. I add a certain a line at different points in my code, and then I try to run it using this particular command line argument or command line, command line argument, which is minus EA, which is minus enable assertions, and then I am able to see this error. This is the very simple idea about assertion. And then you can play around with so many things like Java. So let me have another class. So I can enable and disable, say within this class, if I have, say, Java cert 1, so I have the same code. Now I'm going to compile this. So one important thing that you have to remember is this assertions are a runtime thing. Like compilation time, it does not do anything except when the syntax is wrong. The assert statement syntax is wrong. Otherwise, it does not do anything during compilation time. During runtime, it will be invoked. Like you will be able to see the errors only if you enable the assertions. Like if you have compiled the class code and send it to the client side, the client runs it, he will not be, he or she will not be able to see it. But they report that, okay, at some point I'm able to see this issue. So can you please troubleshoot it? And what I do is from my side, the same data, I'll just simply do a minus EA for this code. And then I'm able to see, okay, at this point, there is this value which is not expected and it is coming. So this is even better than, I would say, giving a lot of print statements here and there, right? I mean, print statements are only like for when I'm doing a development locally, when I'm doing something which is very much specific to my machine, which I'm not sharing with anyone. And even then, like, it kind of becomes messy when you have so many prints coming on the screen, right? So this actually helps you to enable and disable. So the advantage of enable and disable assertion is that you can specifically enable the assertion for a certain set of classes within the same Java file. So for instance, that's what I was trying to show. So okay, Java C Java set is now connected, right? If I run minus EA, right? I'm going to say that I want to enable the, okay, I want to disable the assertion for, this is DA. Okay, disable assertion is for this. I want to disable assertion for Java assert 1. Okay, let me see what happens. Sorry, what happened? Okay, I have to enable, I think I may have to enable it.
Ma'am, I think that will be assert. You have written assert.
Huh,
In
sorry.
previous one. In the previous one, you have written Java assert, not assert. T is missing.
Where? This one.
Yeah, no, previous one. What you have written.
Oh no, that actually I fixed. In this one, I have already fixed that. You see this, no? This one. I mean, I'm not sure if you're able to see this. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth statement from the bottom, right? That actually I fixed. Class not found exception because that T was not there, no last T. I fixed it in the next line.
Yes, seen this.
So I was actually expecting that, it would have enabled assertion for the Java assert. What happened when it disabled for Java assert 1, it has disabled for the Java assert also. So for Java assert 1, it has disabled. So I've given it DA. So disable assertion for Java assert 1 and enable assertions for Java assert. That's what sorry, somebody.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I think the default is disable of assertion. I think sir told that in one of the lectures.
Yeah, correct. Otherwise, we would have gotten it for even the first Java, simple Java, we should have gotten it, right? Like without minus
Yes,
EADA, we should
ma'am.
have gotten the assertion. So I think by default, it should be a disable. That's why, yeah. So now if you give, like I have enabled it for Java, so I'm getting one error. Now if I enable it for Java assert also, sure this works. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
No, I'm not. I think the replit is kind of working. Just let me just refresh this. Just give me a minute. Java minus Java assert. Sorry.
Ma'am, I have a question. While running the program, will it go out of the main? You have not called that function test in the main. Creating an object of assert one.
Sorry, I did not understand. What is it?
I was asking while running the program, I think it will never go out of the main because you have to create an object of assert one and call the test function there. Then I think both will give.
Oh, you have to invoke test. Sorry. Yeah, correct. You have to invoke test, right? Yeah. So I will do it. It's actually Java assert. Got it. Sorry, my bad. Got it. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually not invoking the test method, right? So why would it anyway show that? Correct. You're right. Yeah. So now let me just try simply Java disable it for Java assert and see now it is showing Java assert one.test, right? Yeah, you're very right. So we have to invoke this method here, Java, whichever, and the test method. And then you see that once it is invoked, now I have disabled the assertions for the main class, which is Java assert. And I have enabled the assertions EA for Java assert one, which is the second class. And so I'm not getting the messages, the assert messages for the Java assert class, whereas I'm getting the messages for Java assert one. So if I give something like yeah, right. Okay, now this should have given for both, right? Let me think, just give me a second.
I mean, line number 3.
Here it is showing for Java assert. Sorry.
No. In after line number 3, you have to write again the assert x greater than 0. Then
That
it
does
will.
not matter, no, because this
No,
x
no.
variable is local here, right? These x variables are local to these methods, no? It doesn't matter, right?
Now you run.
I don't think the DA and this thing is working, because earlier also I think it was showing the message for both. Anyway, I think it's just a matter of like, you know, playing around with these. So the whole concept is just that these assert statements are added for runtime diagnostics by the programmer or the developer. Okay, in general, it's not for a message for the end user. It's not in general. That is not the it's not going to help the end user, because the end user possibly is not even going to run the Java command as such. It'll be just invoking clicking on some button which internally fires this Java command, right? So they may not even be looking at that. So eventually it is for the help for the programmer that we have these assertions. Okay. So that is the basic idea. Please go through the videos and go through the assignment questions also. We'll discuss in detail, like there are so many special case, corner case, and all those things you will be able to understand when we discuss the assignment questions. Okay. So now just stop sharing this and then share something. So does anyone else have any other questions on the exceptions hierarchy, or any other general doubt on why this is needed, why the purpose of using it, or
I
anything?
have a doubt in packages.
Okay, packages. Okay. Yeah, ask. Yeah, you can ask.
Ma'am, in packages, can we name a package Java? Because there was one question, but when I tried that in maybe one of the activity questions, it was there, and I tried it on Replit and it was not allowing it. But in the answers, they've given that you can have a package named Java, but it is not recommended. So what should we do in that case?
Anand, do you want to answer this question?
Ma'am, actually at compile time,
Yeah.
so a compiler won't give any problem with the package name Java, but at runtime JVM not allow, ma'am. JVM won't allow to give package name as Java. So that's why it is not recommended.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so thank you.
Yeah. So some security exception, you are getting security exception like that, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is thrown by JVM. So you should not give a package name as Java. Okay.
Okay.
A compiler won't give any problem, but at runtime JVM will give the problem, security exception like that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so we'll look at some of the activity questions for exceptions. Okay, I thought of while doing that logging part, but again, so I will just briefly explain what the logging is also about. Logging is also like there are so Java itself gives you something like this logging class, okay, which actually helps you for logging error. So again, the same issue, right? So if you want a system print a certain message, if you want to find out where the, I mean, some value is going wrong or something like that, right? Then you want to, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute, okay? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so as I was saying, like, week 7 is all about this debugging and fixing issues and error handling and all that. So what happens if you want to see for something is, so there is some software which is running at the customer side for a long time. Okay, something which runs by say 24/7, something is running. And the customer cannot immediately tell you, right? I mean, okay, so this is problem, we'll just have this and troubleshoot it for us. So what this logger helps you to do is it actually logs these things in some memory location. Okay, some memory location. So there are say 7 levels of severity of logging. So severe, warning, information. Then it goes till something known as the finest, which is just like even not even information, something like very something has happened, some kind of very minimal logging that has happened. So this is actually something that keeps happening for every transaction. Say for instance, there is this reservation system or something that's happening. No, for every user entry or something, like every database entry. I'm not talking about the database log. I'm talking about the log that happens from the application server side. So yeah, whatever the software can have a logging facility which is given by the Java API. So there is this logging class which gives you which has a get logger method, which gives a log object. So this log object can be used to log records of the severity of issues that have been faced across the program. So this severity can, as I said, it can range from all this. And there are multiple ways in which you can customize the messages that have to be logged. So you can say that, okay, I want to log only the severe messages. I can say I want to log only warning messages. I want to log only till info. So it is like there is this severity from the left to right side. So I'll just show this slide and so can you see this? Okay, so you have several levels of logging. Okay, 7 levels of logging: severe, warning, info, yeah, config, fine, finer, and finest. So this is depending on what kind of issues are popping up. You can actually categorize the severity level, and you kind of tell the system, okay, by default the first 3 are logged, but you can disable that also. You can disable even the severest of warnings. At the same time, you can say that, okay, I want to log everything. So depending on how you configure like all these levels. So a typical logged message will do something like this. See, as I told you, logger is a class, and then it has this method which gives a log object and info, and you want to log this particular message corresponding to a certain action. And then this will be what will be printed inside the log will be this. Okay, for this, from inside this function list, from inside this class, from inside this function, I have this message which has, and it also this time, date, and everything will be done by the system. We are not doing anything. Only this message, like the level of the message, severity level of the message, and the customized message will be given by us in this simple. Okay. So these are all like nothing conceptual as such, but these are all provisions which are given by the, so you can set different levels for logging, and you can say that, okay, if I want to log all the, so if I say level dot find, right, I want to, then what will be logged is severe, warning, info, config, and fine. All 5 will be logged. So by default, the logging starts from here. So if I say I want to set level to warning, then I will have severe and warning which are logged. If I say I want to log till info, then these 3 will be logged. If I say till fine, then all these will be logged. So it's like the severest ones till the one that I set, right? So here I'm setting fine. Then it will log all the 5 types of messages. So that is about, yeah, so this is like very simple, straightforward, nothing much about it. So we'll look at some of the activity questions, right? So you're able to see the AQ sheet now? Can you see this?
Yes,
Activity
ma'am.
questions. Yeah, so I think I am showing the answer also, but does anybody want to explain like why, what? I think I'm showing you the answer, the explanation also, right? So,
Ma'am?
sorry, one second. Yeah. Can you see this?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Can anybody
Ma'am.
attempt this? Yeah.
Ma'am, I have doubt. Ma'am, my doubt is that, ma'am, what is the meaning of these levels in this login? Like, matlab, what is, ma'am, what is the meaning of these levels? Like, is there any priority given in the message, or I didn't get that why there are levels in the login?
So what you did not understand is what is the meaning, is it?
Yes, ma'am. Matlab, like, ma'am, why there are levels in the login? And what is the meaning of levels?
What is the meaning of levels, is it? Okay. So like the severity of the issues, right? Okay, so
Like, ma'am, is there any priority in these 7 levels? Like the severe level issues will be logged first or anything like that?
yeah, that's what I told you, right? That's what I told you here. The severe, okay, so severity. Okay, so this is more about like how dangerous these levels, like the issue is. So what is the purpose of logging? We are reporting that an event has happened. It could be something bad, really bad, or it could be some regular thing that happens, right? It could be some thing, something like some, when you try to retrieve some data, it was not happening. So then that could be a warning. It tried to retrieve something and something got deleted or something, then that is something like a severe warning. Sorry, it's a severe dangerous situation, right? So based on that, we categorize different issues with different levels. And whatever we say are like the severe, the warning, the info kind, right? All these three are given high priority, and by default, the first 3 levels are logged. What I told about set level and all this, we can customize what we want to log. If we say that we want to log, set the level to fine, then it is not just the fine which is logged, but the issues which are more severe than fine which are like severe warning info config. All of them are supposed to be something which need more attention than the fine cases. Something related to configuration, some information which is like, the backup has happened some like 10 minutes later, or something like some information, something has happened, but it might need an attention so that some problem does not happen the next time, something like that, right? So you can actually categorize the severity based on the context. And if you say I want to set the level to fine, then what I'm asking is like every incident which is as bad as or even worse than fine need to be logged. That's what it means by set level.
Okay, ma'am. Got it.
Got it, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now when you asked me meaning, I got a little confused. Sorry. Yeah, so does anyone want to attempt this question? Arup, are you on the call? Sorry.
Yeah.
Arup, do you want to add anything on assertions, logging, and all that? Anything critical that I may have missed out? Like, I mean, I was just brushing through it, but do you want to add anything specific?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So I think these things, these are like more like trial and error kind of things. This will become more clear when you work out more questions. So if we'll just start off with the AQPQ, but I think we just have another 10 minutes. We'll finish. I mean, whatever is possible, we'll do. And these questions, we'll take it in the next open session, okay, on Saturday. Yeah, does anyone want to attempt this? You know, the answers are very much on your screen, but
Ma'am, can I attempt the first one?
yeah, sure.
Okay. I know that syntax errors are caught by the compiler.
Correct.
Exception should not be raised for those.
Correct.
And the first one, because the index number for the array is more than the created from 0 to 9, but we're asking for index 10.
Exactly. Yeah. Correct.
Then it's
Yeah,
division by 0. And third one is that I have a program which does not have an executable.
Fourth one, right? The option
The
B.
last one, yeah, the last one, sorry, does not have an entry point to execute.
Correct.
There's no main.
Yeah. That's again a runtime issue, right? Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's all very simple, nothing very fancy about these things. Yeah, so this is something I think I've already explained, right? By starting from the first line onwards, I've been saying this. So throwable is the top level, the highest class, the parent, the super parent, or the ancestor, or whatever, the highest level in the exception class hierarchy, right? So above that we have object. Okay, object, throwable, then you have errors and exceptions. Then from within exceptions, you have this different categories of exceptions. Okay, this is also pretty simple. Yeah, so direct subclasses is again very clear from what we have been explaining. So it's not exceptions, the class name is exception. Okay, I think I have been repeatedly saying exceptions. Sorry about that. The classes that come under throwable are error and exception. Okay. Okay, which among the following exceptions is not handled by our program code? So what this means is that, so I told you about error and exception, right? So here, as you can see at the end, one is an error, the other three are exceptions. And I also told you, like when there is an error, it is generally handled, it has to be in general handled by the machine, not by the program, right? So when there is an error, which is possibly due to some issue with the environment in which the code is running, or with the limitations of the resources, out of memory, or the stack spaces overflowing, or even the errors that we just saw, right? Assertion, that in itself is an error. It is an assertion error. It is not an assertion exception. It is an assertion error, which we are saying that it should not be handled because we want to see it in the report. Like we want to diagnose the issue in the code, right? So we do not want the programmer or even the user to handle it. We want to see those as errors as such. And so these are not handled by the program code. So even assertion error that I was talking about, out of memory, stack overflow, then yeah, you can just go through the Java documentation. There are so many that you can see as listed as errors. But in general, all the exceptions are handled by the program, should be handled by the program.
What is null pointer exception?
A null pointer exception is if, for instance, you are initializing a variable which says you are reading from some file or somewhere you are okay. So you have actually read a list of values and you want to see whether there is any value which is, say, I'm talking about objects in general. Okay, the null comes with some null reference to the object, right? So you've read a list of customer objects and you want to see if there is at least one customer who has bought 10 items. If there is no customer who has bought 10 items, but you're still trying to say, okay, if the number of items is greater than this, then this customer is assigned a new customer object with this value. In that case, no value is assigned to this customer object, right? Then that customer object will have a null pointer, right? So then when you try to use that object, so I don't know if I can write here. I need a separate screen. So are you able to understand, like you are initializing something, some object, which does not get any valid object reference. It is initialized with null and we are expecting that it will get assigned with a new value, but that does not happen. In such a case, null pointer exception happens.
Okay.
So you are reading a list of, as I was just saying, the customer objects. You expect some customer to have bought at least 10 items. And in the for loop that you're seeing, you try to allocate at least one. But when you came out of the for loop also, there was no customer who had bought 10 items. So that customer like max customer or some value is there, that still is null because no customer object got attached to it. And if you try to print that customer name, say customer, max customer got print name or something, if you have not handled that exception, looking at the specific case where this could be initialized to null, then it will generate a null pointer exception because that has not been allocated a valid object reference.
Like ma'am, when we learn the constructor, the instance variable initially have a null, and when we define that variable with some value, then it gets some value. Can we say that?
You actually, yeah, when you're creating a constructor, when you're calling the constructor, you're creating an object reference, right? You're using this new something to create that object reference, no? Correct, no? You are actually using the new object reference, right? So when you are trying to use an object which has not been assigned an object reference, that is where the null pointer exception comes.
Okay.
Okay, you are trying to use an object. You can have an object with which is equal to which you have initialized to null. That is fine. But when you're trying to use this object which is null, then it generates a null pointer exception unless you have handled it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which among the following exceptions is not detected by the compiler at compile time? So by now, I have explained it many times, right? The checked exception and the unchecked exception. Checked exceptions are the ones which are pointed to you by the compiler. In the first example which I showed you, when we extend it from exception, then it becomes a checked exception which is pointed out by the compiler. If you are extending it from the runtime exception, then it is an unchecked exception which is not pointed to by the compiler during compile time. So arithmetic exception is actually derived from the runtime exception, and all the other classes are not. So you might ask me, how do we know? The exams, these kind of questions will not be asked, don't worry. This is more for you to be able to identify that, okay, there are these set of exceptions, that set of exceptions. Some, say for instance, if you have, you are actually going to have some, in the later week, right? You have some like file input stream, say f equal to new file input stream, you're reading something, right? So that is actually a checked exception. So you have to put it inside a try block. So it will say, okay, this is an exception which has not been handled. Then you have to put it inside a try block because the system is anticipating that there is a possibility this could be, this file may not be there. Okay, so yeah, I mean, of course, arithmetic exception, you can say that, okay, why not anticipate that this has a zero value? I mean, some point this can be have a zero value, and why don't you put it try? I'm not sure why it's not there, but yeah, certain exceptions, compiler will insist you have to put it inside the try block. So this 1 second, which among the following exceptions is detected at compile time by the compiler? Again, you know, this string index out of bounds, array index out of bounds, which I already told you, like runtime exception you have, then index out of bounds you have, inside which you have these two, in string index out of bounds and array index out of bounds. Null pointer, number format, these are all coming under the runtime exception. So, I mean, you just have to go and look at the Java class hierarchy to answer these questions. These kind of questions will not be asked in the exam. I mean, of course, see, you have, I mean, the OP and all that, you have reference to the Java documentation that time, right? So if you want to add some customized exceptions or something like that, then you should probably go and look at, okay, what is the parent class that is most suitable for this exception to be a subclass of or something like that. So in that case, you should go and check the documentation. That's it. But it will not generally involve anything that will need you ever to by heart these things. Okay, that's not required. Does anybody want to try this?
Yeah, we will have the exception and print.
Sorry? Is someone speaking? Sorry, I did not hear.
Ma'am, may I?
Sorry?
Can I?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Ma'am, here the error should have been arithmetic exception, which is not handled. So the program gets terminated due to
Right.
unhandled exception.
Yeah. So just putting it inside a try block is not enough. You should have an appropriate catch block which will anticipate the kind of exception that can be raised inside the try block, right? Now, this catch block is actually expecting some exception, but it is not the right exception that it is expecting. So if you're unsure of what kind of exceptions can come, you just go for this hierarchy, which I told you. You can have the array index out of bound, you can have the arithmetic exception, at the end you can have the exception also, so that in case you're unsure of what kind of exception is going to come, then it will definitely get caught in the last one, which is like this parent exception class, which will accept any kind of exceptions, right? So just having a try catch block is not enough. It should have the appropriate catch. The catch should have the appropriate exception which is being caught. You can have multiple catches if you're not sure like which catch is going to be executed. Okay, so this is again, even though we have a try and a catch and everything, the exception does not match with the exception generated does not match with the exception being caught. Okay. Which among the following blocks contain error-prone code? It's very clear, no? We are expecting a problem inside the code in the try block, and inside catch, and finally inside catch we are giving some kind of a error handling mechanism, whereas finally we have some kind of a cleaning up mechanism, right? So try is where we are anticipating that there will be some problematic code, right? Which among the following blocks is used to throw an exception explicitly? So this is, you can see throw and throws, right? So in the code which I showed, I'm not sure if you noticed it carefully. I'll just show you once again. See, this is throws, whereas this is throw. And these two are two different keywords. Okay. This throw, which I have highlighted now in blue, I don't know if you can see this blue highlighting. This throw means that it is a verb. It is saying that, okay, I have encountered something which I was not supposed to see, something like k equal to 7. Just throw the new exception. Okay. What this throws means is that it is an indication to the calling method that, okay, if you are going to call me, there is a possibility that I'm going to throw this exception because there is a throw statement inside me which is throwing this kind of an exception. This kind of an exception or a subclass of this exception. Okay, so throw and throws are different. Throw is more like a verb, which is, okay, of course, throws is also a verb, but I'm saying is throw means it is saying, okay, throw this now. Division by 7, the throws means that, okay, I'm going to possibly say throw this kind of an exception. That is what the two keywords differentiate. Okay, so that please don't get it confused. Some people have confused it. That's why I'm asking, like just bringing it to your notice specifically. Throw and throws are two different things. Okay. Which among the following classes should be extended to create user-defined exception classes? So, as I was saying, like generally user-defined classes, it is recommended that it is a checked exception, and hence it has to extend the exception class. That is the general idea. Okay. So arithmetic exception, I'm sure you can extend because you have seen that we have done it. The other class we have seen that can be done. But this is the general recommended thing that user-defined classes should extend the exception class. So can you tell me what is the problem in this? You can see the error also, right? I mean, you can see what the answer is.
Finally block is above the catch block.
Correct. So finally should come after all the catch is written, right? That's a problem. Yeah. Finally should not come before the catch. That is it.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
In the previous question, I think we can write try and finally together. The error will be that the catch block don't have a try block for it. Not the finally block is written in the middle.
Yeah, I told you, right? We can write even without the catch also. Try and
Yes, I'm saying that
finally
the
alone
error
you
is that.
can write.
Yes, yes, I'm saying that
Yeah,
the
so
error
the
is not
error
that the
is,
finally.
yeah, the error is if there is a finally and a catch which is associated with a single try, then the catch has to precede the finally. That is clear, no? See, what we are
I
trying
got
to
that.
handle is the exception. What you are saying is, see, if I put a try in front of this catch, it will work is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
No, but that is not what we want to handle. We want to handle this a equal to 10 by 0, right?
Oh, okay.
So for that, I have to put the catch just after this try only, right?
But
Yes, yes.
if there is two catch and one try block, can
Hmm.
I place the finally in between two catch?
No, no, no. Finally has to come after all the.
Always has to come there.
Yeah. Okay, shall we proceed? Okay, I think I don't know. I'll just check how many questions are there in this. Okay, I think it will take a long time. So let us just wind it up here. We'll continue with the discussion in the next Saturday session. Meanwhile, please go through the video as much as is possible. Go through the questions so that, yeah, you can ask relevant questions, which we'll try to help. Okay.
And ma'am, this programming exam contain the syllabus up to which week?
Week 6, including week 6.
1 to 6.
Correct.
Okay. Oh.
So we have a code with instructor planned for Thursday morning. Because evening slots are like, overlapping with other course sessions and all that. So we decided to have something in the morning. Please try to join. We'll try to code the week 5 and 6 programming questions and a little bit of other examples. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sure. So unless anybody has any specific questions, we'll wind up. Okay. It's fine. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Yeah, Shutosh.
When the programming exam will have?
Sorry, can you speak a little louder?
I was asking about my programming exam. When it will be happen?
Just give me a minute. I'm not using the headphones. Let me try. I'm not able to hear you clearly. Yeah. Can you? Sorry, sorry to ask you again. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Ma'am, I was asking about the programming exam. When the exam will have?
When is the exam? Is it?
Yeah.
It's on June 25 and 26. No? You would have already received the slot booking and all that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can the others? So like you would have got the slot booking form already?
Yeah, slot booking G means form already we have filled up. But
Yeah, so that's
date is not announced.
It is not given.
Not
No, but
given.
it is there in the grading pattern document is there, on the course portal. It has full details, all the details about when the OPs are happening.
Okay.
The grading pattern document is there, no?
It's there, but we don't know that whether those dates are.
Yeah, those are the final ones.
Final date.
Yeah, I mean that's my understanding. I don't think there is anything postponed. Like we have been asked to prepare for those dates. I don't think there is a, so why do you think there is a change? Like was there any assumption or suggestion or anything, like, or was it just?
No, actually, in the G form we have. I forgot the time slot that they asked.
2 to 3:30, right? 2 to 3:30 on June 25th and June 26th. Those will be the options you've gotten.
No, I need to cross check.
Not remember? Okay, maybe I am also not sure. So these are the dates and times that we are aware of: June 25 and 26, which is Saturday and Sunday. I think. Yeah, Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 3:30 p.m. 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Yes, ma'am. You are right, ma'am. But ma'am, we didn't get the slot confirmation, and I think that is
Okay.
what he is asking.
Oh, okay. So whatever option you have given, whether that will be allotted to you is the question, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that I'm not sure. Okay, that I think depends on how many people have booked on a day and how many proctors we get for a day and all that. So we are actually we need to get proctors for monitoring the exam, right? So we depend a lot on external proctors. Like so depending on how many people we get on Saturday, how many people we get on Sunday, and how many are given the preference on Saturday. Based on this, a lot of matching algorithms and allocations happen, and that's after that you will get to know about the slots. So we need proctors to monitor the test, right? So our course instructor team will not be enough, right? Because there are so many sessions that have to be monitored. So we generally take external help and.
But is this means proctored means we already have given a this thing for non-proctored exam?
Sorry?
No, means a month back there is a half an hour session that
is
we log,
SAT, right? System compatibility test, no?
and that is non-proctored. I thought
No.
the exam also would be again non-proctored.
No, that's a system compatibility test, right? Whether your mobile phone is okay, whether your system is okay and all that, right?
Yeah. And then how many questions we need to solve in the exam?
So questions, generally we have 4 questions, out of which you have to answer 3. Okay, yeah. Thanks everyone. Okay, bye.
Thank you, ma'am.